Hi everyone, Renee here, wishing you a happy new year, and I hope you're all having a great one so far. So this video is going to be a very organic mashup. I'm doing my evening winter skincare routine, but I'll also be reviewing my most recent evening routine favorites for the past year. Of course, that'll be followed up with my morning routine favorites. These are the new formulas that have just really worked for me and I just love. I found this year to be particularly bountiful in respect to first cleansers. I mean, other than sunscreens, this is the category of skincare I burn through the fastest, so I tend to use a lot in a year. So I'm going to start off with Geek and Gorgeous's Mighty Melt. This is affordable, but really feels like luxury. This, for me, performs like one of those very high-end Japanese cleansing balms. It has just the most elegant texture. I found out this does have the Japanese cleansing balm technology to it, but it's just the way it transforms during application is so silky. Everything melts on contact, of course. It emulsifies beautifully and rinses off completely clean. On the other end of the scale, my most feel-good, I just want to treat myself like an empress cleansing balm is this one from Ranavat, their Enchanted Empress Lotus Cleansing Balm. This is pure pampering. It goes beyond just cleansing. This is when you want to treat yourself. The scent of this, for me, is transcendent. It's got two of my favorite things in it. It's got blue tansy and jasmine. This definitely has that blue tansy sort of chamomile-ish scent to it, and it's so calming and soothing, but also the balm itself is very lush and rich. Whenever I use this, I just go full facial massage. It's not even something I can control. My hands just start to massage. Again, this removes everything effortlessly, doesn't sting the eyes, turns beautifully milky, and rinses off without residue. I have another favorite that I could not include. Besides, this is just pure skin-tertainment, but skin-tertainment that works exceptionally well. The best kind. From Bifesta, their Sparkling Oil Cleansing Foam. Bifesta is one of the most popular Japanese drugstore brands that, in my experience, are particularly well known for their cleansers. They have the best cleansers, some of which are iconic, like their eye makeup remover. This is pure and simply a cleansing oil, but it looks like this. So perhaps it has a little bit of an identity crisis, but I love it. So it's this rich, luscious foam that just transforms into a rich cleansing oil that works beautifully. In fact, it reminds me very much of the DHC cleansing oil. It melts off the most stubborn makeup and the most resistant Japanese sunscreens, emulsifies beautifully, rinses off completely clean. In fact, I find this so adept at removal that sometimes this is just really the only cleanser I use. A new cleanser I've been using nonstop this winter is from Sachi Skin, their Saponins Cream Cleanser. So this recently launched, but I've been using it for well over a month now and really loving it. This is gentle, but it really does effectively cleanse the skin. The texture is so comforting, which I love. I use this as a second cleanser, so I apply it immediately after my first cleanse on wet skin. It comes out rich and creamy, but it rinses off completely clean without residue. This uses saponins, which is a plant-based cleansing agent. You know, I think most of us were introduced to saponins with Neod's Sanskrit saponins. So it does effectively clean, but in just the most gentle and comforting way. There are new exfoliating treatments coming out all the time, and they work, but it's been a minute since there's been one that I've been really excited about. So relatively new, although I have been using this for a bit, from Paula's Choice, their Skin Perfecting 6% Mandelic Acid plus 2% Lactic Acid Liquid Exfoliant. This is clearly the AHA sibling to their Unicorn Tears BHA Liquid Exfoliant. So this has a lot to live up to, but it really does it for me. I personally love that this is a combination of mandelic acid and time-release lactic acid. As many of you know, I have been a fan of mandelic acid since the beginning. My sensitive, reactive skin, especially back in the day, was just not comfortable with a lot of the glycolic acid formulas out there that were just so harsh. Mandelic was so much easier to tolerate for my skin. I think for winter too, this is such a great exfoliant. It's kind of counterintuitively when we really need to exfoliate because our skin is just so dull, dry, flaky, and parched. This is great because it is super hydrating, but also it does not irritate my skin at all. The mandelic acid molecules are of a larger size, but also there's that time release element to it as well. So I use this in the evening, and by morning, my skin just feels so juicy and smooth. As per usual, exfoliation for me is always done as needed, so on a weekly rather than daily basis. This year, I have been a little obsessed with peptides. It's probably some of the most exciting skincare technology, especially when it comes to well aging. Peptides can do a lot. I'm linking a video that I did about peptides, which explain them and also explain which peptides do what they're for, and who can benefit from them. So usually straight after cleansing in my evening routine, I will use my Neod CAIS3. You've heard me talk plenty about that. That is a staple in my routine. A new serum that I tried, and mainly out of my own curiosity because they have a really new advanced ingredient. It's one of the few formulas that do, is from PCA Skin, their Ex-Linea Pro Peptide Serum. The focus of this is simply expression lines, how to treat existing ones, and to prevent them from getting deeper. This uses a combination of the most advanced peptides at targeting facial muscle contractions. I've explained before that I have a personal aversion to injectables. It's just my own squeamishness. So that's not something that I will be doing anytime soon. The best option for me is this. It really does work. I mean, it's not immediately effective, but nothing that I do for well aging really is. It's kind of a marathon. It is the fastest absorbing weightless formula. It leaves nothing on the skin. In fact, I love that the texture really allows you to effectively spot treat. So I do it on my forehead for forehead lines, obviously the 11s, around the sides of my eyes, just anywhere I feel my expression lines are. I also love that peptide formulas don't really clash. In fact, they complement one another so well. I use this with my CAIS and it just works so well together. My essence step is literally my essence step. Naturally, this is my favorite formula. It is customized to everything I want. So it is difficult for me to find something or try something that I think could possibly replace it. It's also super substantial, which is great during this time of year. It intensely hydrates, but also moisturizes as well. I'm going to skip ahead here to lip treatment because they are shriveling as we speak. My go-to these days has been from Allies of Skin, their Peptide and Ceramide Repair Lip Balm. I honestly prefer a stick format, but I don't always love how waxy they are. During colder weather, sometimes they're just solid. This melts like a butter when you apply it and just glides over your lips. It also leaves some glossiness as well. You're not going to have hair strands sticking to your lips. This has some beautiful plant ingredients that don't just nourish and moisturize your lips, but also treat them with peptides. I like that there are ceramides in here. There's also occlusivity enough to just stay. It's as long lasting. I want to mention that I do really love Rhode's Glazing Milk as like a liquid moisturizer. I liken this to the Laneige Cream Skin, but without that finish, which is still kind of greasy or oily. It does absorb quite well. You can tell from the texture already, it's a little thicker, more substantial. This is more like heavy cream texture than a milky or watery one. This to me is like a Japanese emulsion, which is that light in between lipid layer after hydration and before moisturizer, which during the summer can be used on its own, and it's enough that you don't need another moisturizer. I have a couple of favorite new eye creams, one that I will be showing you more of in my morning routine. Spoiler alert, it's from Mary and May, and my favorite evening routine eye cream. From Medicate, their Crystal Retinol Ceramide Eye 6. I love this formula so much, I want to use it on my whole face. So previously I was using Aven Retinol Eyes, which I love, but when this came out, I just immediately switched. I mean, Medicate is another brand I really trust with retinaldehyde. In fact, that was the original retinaldehyde formula that I started using on a regular basis, the Crystal Retinaldehyde 6. So I love that there are 3 strengths available, the 3, the 6, and the 10. I will eventually like to work my way up to a 10. They use this twin encapsulated retinaldehyde, which ensures a slow timed release throughout the night. That ultra slow release is what really helps this delicate area tolerate this. I love that I can actually use a really powerful and effective active around this area in my eyes. This is where I really need it. There is no scent to this. I love the texture of it. I love how silky, hydrating it feels. At the same time, it's moisturizing and it really plumps out my skin, even in this dry winter where everything cracks. I want to talk about these eye patches from Pyunkang. They're Black Tea Time Reserve Eye Patch. And you know, I've always been a huge fan of Pyunkang from the moment it first came on my radar, when there were only like 5 formulas. This has become, to date, probably my favorite patches around. I cannot get enough of this, to a point where I find it so effective and just so good. Like, I love all the ingredients in it. I just love the way it feels. And I also love that this is dissolvable as well. I find myself just putting them all over my face in all different patterns, exactly where I need them. And when I remove them, it just irons out that part of my skin. I mean, these are hydrating, brightening, peptides, antioxidants. I mean, it's just, these are great treatments. I always have one batch that I keep in the fridge, and especially in the morning time when I wake up with a super puffy face, they just feel really good. Oil serums have come back into my routine in a pretty big way. Not that I ever stopped using them altogether. I just needed to use them less. I mean, I love oil serums so much. But this year, my hormones just seemingly went nuts. There have been patches of time where my skin has just been so dry and parched, and this is regardless of season. Layering lipids have just saved my skin. And if you remember from my previous routines, my oil serum is always right after hydration and before moisturizer. This is what I find to be the most effective for my skin. Of course, the Double Rose Luminizer, which was in my Boxwalla box, is one of the most beautiful oils I've used. The texture is not oily. In fact, it's really unique. It's got a bit of a bounce to it, much like a hydrating serum. It just applies like silk, but also it has a subtle but really beautiful scent. It's a very natural scent with, of course, a hint of rose, but it's just it just makes you feel really good. Another oil serum that I really can't quit despite how pricey it is from Noble Panacea, their Absolute Nourishing Lift Oil. This is not your average oil serum. In fact, it is the first of its kind that not only moisturizes your skin, but can also hydrate. They've developed an OSMV technology which allows hyaluronic acid to be encapsulated in a pure oil, and then it is slow released over time. A lot of times I've used this alone as a moisturizer. It works some kind of magic overnight because I always wake up in the morning with really plumped out, soft, moisturized skin. I mean, there's no residual greasiness sitting on top. Everything is just absorbed. It is nourishing, moisturizing, substantial, but also it's got the antioxidants. It's got vitamin C. It's got retinol in it, which is pretty much why, despite the price, I find myself repurchasing the refills, which really are only just marginally less expensive. I just want to mention that these boxes, they are plastic-free, made out of renewable materials and starch. The daily dose packaging is also 100% recyclable. They just really want to keep the potency of the formula as well as keep it as pure as possible. Very few moisturizers out there that dare to be this rich. From The Ordinary, the natural moisturizing factors and phytoceramides. I mean, I've tried texturally dense moisturizers before, but it's almost as though they're so scared of being greasy. You sort of have this really velvet, grippy, matte experience that doesn't really feel very moisturizing, even though it is a dense cream. This is so moisturizing and so protective that I could be sleeping in front of an industrial heating unit and I will wake up the next morning with glowy skin. So I love the richness of this. I also really love the way it makes my skin look as well. I mean, when I do use this during the day, it's usually on days where I just don't wear any makeup because makeup does not sit well over this. I am completely in love with Pyunkang Black Tea Enriched Cream. My favorite evening moisturizers this year are ones that are really moisturizing. I will be showing some of my favorite lighter weight moisturizers in my morning routine. It was Pyunkang whole hanbang approach to skincare that got me, and I love the fermented black tea, but also this cream has ginseng in it, and you know, I kind of like ginseng. I mean, this is full of well-aging antioxidants, saponins, polyphenols. This also has a good amount of niacinamide in it as well, and it is densely creamy. I've opened a new tub because I want you to see what this looks like. This has that texture of creamy butter, and it really just applies so beautifully. I mean, it is rich but instantly comforting on the skin. The way it finishes on the skin, I think, would make so many people happy regardless of skin type because it's really flattering. It's not greasy, it's not matte, it's just very natural, but it looks good. This is just pure comfort and protection. So I've been mostly applying my tretinoin beginner style, which is over my moisturizer, mainly because of what I mentioned before, which is my hormones is causing my skin to just be really inconsistent. And there are some days where it just feels suddenly really sensitive. So it just works best for me to apply tret over my moisturizer, and I never have any issue with that. And there's a more gentle, slower release when there is the buffer. From the agency, my future formula, this is kind of new, but not really, because I've been using Curology for such a long time, and the agency is an offshoot with a focus more on my needs, which is well aging. So I've been loving this, and also being able to really speak to someone through the different changes my skin is going through to just make sure that the formula is always something that will work for me. I think Curology and agency, we've got such a history together. The formulas will always be a staple for me. Although I am beginning to explore Dermatica because I've just been getting so many requests from you just on my thoughts. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I really want to give it a proper try before speaking to it because I know Dermatica is accessible in parts of the world that the agency is not. So stay tuned for my review. So usually my evening routine ends right there, but I have been incorporating a whole extra element, which is low-level laser technology from Lima. I've been curious about this ever since it first came out, and many of you have been asking my thoughts on this, especially because it is a pricey item. I mean, none of us want to invest in something that may not work for us. I definitely will be speaking to this in more detail in future videos on devices, because that's what I feel I've been really into this last year. I think that's because at least now for me, any difference it makes would be more noticeable, but also it's because I find myself at a point where I actually enjoy dedicating the time to these devices that are required for them to really work. So laser therapy is different from light therapy in that it goes even deeper. So what I love about Lima is it uses cold laser therapy. So I've used other laser therapy devices like Nira, and what I find uncomfortable is the fact that it actually can heat up quite a bit. And when you have reactive sensitive skin like I do, heat is something that just feels really uncomfortable. So I have none of that with this. And because this works on such a deeper level, it will not interfere with your skincare, which is why I can use this as a last step over my Tret and everything else. The challenge is that I have to use this and manually move it around my face for about 40 minutes every day. You won't even begin to see results until at least 3 months. I'm actually really proud of myself. I've been using this a few months now and I've been consistent. The main motivators are this is expensive enough. I have to use it. And also I've been doing so well for long enough now, it would just be a waste to just fall off the wagon. But also there have been some signs that this is working and that it is doing something. It's mostly in the way my skin has been behaving. So I really want to see it through.